I'm gonna try and keep it short, but I'm gonna give you some tactics and some things that might help you in playing Artanis. This is basically going to be a swap tutorial. Um, so this is just take a good look about how far the Q goes. This is the main thing that's going to let you like get gap close and then swap out at the last second to pull people back to where you're standing. Some of the best swaps are made at long distances when people like aren't ready for it, or it's a great way to get like a Morales or a Gul'dan or someone who's like really squishy that you need to prioritize in a team fight. So the first thing I would suggest is going into try mode and toggling off the cooldowns and getting an idea for how far the Q goes. Alright, so once you get an idea for how far the Q goes, you want to get an idea for how far the E goes. They're roughly the same distance. It seems to me that Q is just a little bit longer than E. You just kind of double it, and that's really the maximum that you can get. So if you can visualize this Q going up to that minion wave, that's probably where the E will end up. Basically the idea is you Q out, and then when you're at max distance, or just about, you toss out the phase prism, and then by the time the phase prism gets to your enemy, you're back. When you're doing these swaps, you're not always going to be able to just get max distances. Like sometimes you're going to get them halfway. The max distance ones are just really, it's like shooting a three-pointer in basketball, or it's like throwing a really long football pass, or I don't know, like cramming for an exam and hoping to get an A. Unless you have like some amount of luck, then like you're not going to be able to hit it reliably all the time. Um, so don't be afraid to kind of just do swaps that are a little bit easier. For example, if you just have to lock onto somebody, feel free to like kind of queue onto them and then just like bring them to the position where you're at. So like one of those, so you can just slow people down and get them, like get onto them. If you just need to catch someone, it's totally reasonable for you to just like swap immediately. It's essential that you use quick cast for this because everything happens so quick. It's like you can't be trying to move your mouse and like aim like an ability and then click instead of just like aiming and then pressing a button. Like the extra time is really critical when people start getting like able to predict where you're going to put it, and you need to really swap. So the next one that I wanted to show you guys is the back swap. So essentially what this one is you're up close with the target, and then you Q in the direction, and then E in the opposite direction. It's an alternative to the long swap, and it's good for quick repositionings, or quick repositions that aren't really predictable. And I mean, sometimes you can finish off a tank like that. You can cheese people in lane under turret. The back swap is pretty much solely for when you're up against some sort of target at close range and you need to reposition them into like a different area where your team might be. I think the best thing that you can do if you're going to start practicing Artanis is to first just jump into try mode, and like I said, get used to the way that the Q ends up. Maybe one good tactic is to kind of like place your mouse where you think that it's going to end up, and then see if you're right. And remember that the E is going to be somewhat like doubled. Um, the E is going to be somewhat doubled like from the distance of the Q for how far you go out. So just like get into try mode and play around with like the different directions that you can swap. Um, like get a sense for like how far you go, and get a sense for how far the phase shift goes, and try to throw your phase shifts out at the last second.